Okay, Jake, as I was watching your swings, one thing that I've seen has gotten better from watching the slow motion last week, although I still wanted to address it, is your back foot's not turned out as much as it was before, and we don't see that back knee pointing as much backwards as it was before. So as you're rocking into back hip load here, you can even see here how we're just pointing out just a little bit. That just it's going to throw off some of our timing later. I would really work on closing that off, although it looks better than as I watched it on film last week. You can just see as you're loading your back hip there, and that's not a bad pinch that you are creating in there. We still have a little bit of open there. I think we can close that off. The big thing that we want to work on is how we're setting up our lower half. And I think that as we get this squared up a little bit more early, I think it's going to help us out with our timing, because as you start getting into toe touch here, okay, right, that's not a terrible position, but you can see how we're starting to get a little bit of weight here. Your top hand is still a fist away from your back shoulder. That's pretty good. But the big thing that and you can watch this compared to major leaguers, I didn't want to put up anybody side by side, is as I touch your front hip here at toe strike, we've got a lot of movement forward as we're starting to rotate, right? And if we're going to have that much movement forward, we've got to get that movement forward without rotating, right? So we're getting a lot of hip slide from here to here, and as we get to immediate preparation, right, where our front heel is in the ground, we kind of take a look at our hands here, and we can see as we are sliding forward here, we've started to move our hands forward, and it sets us up so that we get kind of this around type of action and our chin come up. See how we get that around type of action. And I was going to put you side by side with a major leaguer, but I didn't want to break protocol here. But I think a big thing that'll help is if we get this more squared up as we rock into hip load, which again, it looks better than I saw before, we'll be able to get down so that it's just toe, heel, and then go, right? Rather than, again, look at where our front hip is. Look at how much we are sliding forward as we are starting to turn. Whereas if we're going to slide forward, we've got to slide our hip forward before we start to turn. And the other thing, too, I just wanted to call to your attention is you might want to think about how we're getting our hands to move as we're taking our stride. You're really static, right? You can just see how your top half is so static. And as you watch your back elbow, you can really see how it's starting to come forward before we start to get to rotation. Again, just watching your back elbow, see how you're starting to come forward as your toes coming down. We shouldn't really get a lot of movement forward until we get to right there. I like the way that you're stacked up, right, that you've got your elbow on top of your hands. Like, it's by no means terrible. You're able to stay connected pretty good. We just set ourselves up for a little bit of an around action. But in the final analysis, what I would recommend, again, as we are going to get that negative movement rocking into hip load, have this forward, have this forward, have this more lined up forward. You can see how we're turned out just a little bit, because eventually what we want to get to is, okay, we get toe, and then from right here it's heel down and go, rather than, again, watching our front hip, getting that sliding forward as we start to rotate.